Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'm your host, Erin Bradley, and man, I'm really glad you tuned in today. If it's your first time, welcome aboard. If you've been here before, buckle up. It's going to be a great show. I've got Nathan Barkocy here, and he is a new friend of mine and another Colorado guy, which I'm excited about. So someday we'll have to meet in real life and not just over Zoom. But he was introduced to me by my mentor, Sharon Lechter, and you may have heard her episode on the podcast not too long ago. And Sharon is one of those people that I just respect and admire and have been influenced by and transformed by her support and her wisdom. And when she made a recommendation to have Nathan on the show, it was an immediate yes. But now, since we've gotten to know each other, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just the beginning of this relationship because we have so much in common and so much synchronicity and so much opportunity to collaborate in the future. So I think this is me not the last time you Pursuing Freedom friends meet Nathan Barkocy, but a little more about Nathan is that has a wild story, which I'm going to let him share about being one of the top 10 cyclists in the nation and having a tragic accident that is quite extraordinary. And he went on to become a real estate developer, entrepreneur. He's founder of the True Wealth Movement. And he recently co-authored a book that's about to release in a couple weeks after this recording called Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth. And we're going to unpack what exactly does that mean. And I'm super excited to have you. So, Nathan, thank you for taking the time to join us on the show today.
Aaron, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be with you and very honored to be able to speak this truth with you and, of course, be in collaboration with Sharon Lechter as well.
Well, let's start from the beginning because as we started chatting earlier, I was like, whoa, 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 we got to cut this off and start recording because this is gold. We need the audience to hear all the juiciness. But it's a wild story, it's a tragic story, and I'm grateful that you're here to share it with us. So, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely miraculous that I am here to share this with you. So I appreciate it, Aaron. It all started back in 2016. I was a nationally ranked cyclist, as you said. I was top 10 in the nation. I was state champion in New Mexico. I was the state road race leader in New Mexico for competitive cycling, right? So I had my eyes set on going to the Tour de France and racing in Europe, going to the Olympics. And I was the youngest to ever win the Tour of the Gila in Silver City, New Mexico. I was setting records with all of my accomplishments as a competitive road cyclist, right? And so each accomplishment that I was achieving was bringing me one step closer to the dream of, going to the Olympics, of going to race in Europe and accomplishing my full, becoming an internationally renowned cyclist, right? And I was on my way to achieving all of that when I went out on a training ride with my coach and my teammate the morning of January 23rd, 2016. And while we were riding, I was hit by a car at 60 miles an hour. So that car sent me flying about 100 feet, and immediately I was unconscious. I died on the scene, and so the officer that came to the side of the scene reported it as a fatality, and they put me in a hospital. And my coach called my mom, and he said, "Nathan's on the way to the hospital. He's dead." God bless my parents, right? And all the parents listening, they can understand the tragedy in that type of message. So this is where the story begins, right? So I was in a coma for 2 weeks. By God's grace, I opened my eyes again, and I was paralyzed on my left side. I was in the ICU for a month, and while I was in the ICU, right, the doctors said that I wouldn't walk again, that I would be mentally and physically incompetent, that I might not finish high school. This is all the words that the doctors were telling us. And so, of course, my family is just filled with sorrow, right, and so much tragedy. But by God's grace, right, so I was put on a medical flight, still in a wheelchair, right, put on a medical flight up to Craig Hospital, which is in Denver, Colorado. And that's where I rehabbed. That's where I learned how to live again as a 16-year-old, right? A nationally ranked competitive cyclist that didn't know how to walk, right? I had to learn how to walk again and how to talk again and eat again and how to live again, right? And so that's not something that you expect to learn how to do when you're 16 years old, right? You expect to learn to do that when you're a toddler. And so it was definitely a big shift in my passions and in my understanding of life, right? And this is what I always tell people is that when I'm laying in the hospital bed really struggling to just push a button to come be rolled out of bed into a wheelchair. While I still knew in my mind that I was a nationally ranked cyclist, what you do in that moment is you really have a mindset shift, right? About what truly holds value. And so to me, what I realized in that moment, and this is a saying I've had since that day, is that tomorrow is never promised. So we need to make the most of today, right? Because our time is so precious. Our time is our most valuable asset. And then, of course, how we focus our time is how we can grow business, accomplish our dreams. And so that's what I'm passionate about now. We'll, of course, get into more of the true wealth movement and the true wealth community that I'm starting alongside Sharon Lechter. But that's my real passion, right? Is to really help a generation redefine wealth, right? Because it's so far beyond just the money, right? It comes into the life that you can create and the person that you become, because that is true wealth, right? True wealth is communal. It's capitalism, at its finest. And so that's really how we got here today, Aaron.
Well, it's interesting because you are quite a young man and you've lived a lot of life and you've been dealt a blow that's led you to an awakening that's put you on a journey to bring impact to the world in such a special way. But as I sit here talking to you, it's like listening to the wisdom of a person who's been here for 300 years. So like talk me through a little bit more of the even your own personal development to overcome the adversity, because a lot of people once life happens in a really hard way, and yours was more extreme than most can relate to, there's often a lot of despair and a lot of fear and doubt and worry, and when the doctors are diagnosing you with doom, and you've had at some point you had to have conviction to overcome, right? I mean, I know Craig is one of the most incredible brain injury hospitals in the world, and you had the best medical professionals, but at the same time you had to have the willingness, the decisiveness to thrive. So can you talk us through that process, because that's really inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot we can break that question into. You touched on wisdom, and that's something that I would love to convey to your audience, is really the importance of wisdom. You say, Nathan, you're 26 years old, but you're talking like 300 years of wisdom. That's the beauty of networking and of mentorship, right? Because yes, I may be 26 years old, right? But I have Sharon Lechter as my mentor. I have teammates all around me. I have Ken McElroy who gives me advice. I have a lot of really, really high level, high profile thinkers who are advising me and mentoring me to move forward and to build my understanding, right? And there's such a difference between wisdom and knowledge. And so, especially when we're in entrepreneurial lifestyle as the one that I am living, it is so important to surround yourself with people who have walked the walk, right? And you need to surround yourself with people who you desire to be, right? Because they will bring you to where you desire to be, of course. And so that's a big thing that I'd like to touch on. But you're also asking a lot about the mentality, and that's a big question. I always call it the David Goggins mentality, right? Because it's something that may not necessarily be common, but we all have it within us, right? So everybody encounters trial in some regard, right? Whether it be encountering death, like I did, whether it be, rolling your ankle, whether it be financial, right? Whether it be familial, right? Whether it be spiritual. There's so many different forms of suffering that we all encounter. But the key difference, right, between someone who can move beyond that and take off and then someone who's held down by that is exactly the fact that, right, we shouldn't use our suffering as a dead weight that holds us back. We need to use it as fuel to help us launch forward. It's a story that's very based on, right, the suffering, the death, and the resurrection, because there's all of us encounter suffering, right? And then that will lead to death in some regard. Like I had to die to, although I actually did die, I had to die to myself as a cyclist because I can't race anymore, right? And that's such a tragic death for me because my passion was in cycling. So now I had to redefine myself. And redefine myself as a businessman, redefine myself as a husband, as a father. And so this is all, a lot of mindset shift. And it really is in the mindset, right? And there's so much that can be said for the importance of consistency, right? And the importance of really holding yourself to your true passions, right? I think a lot of people don't really understand what they're passionate about or what they really desire to pursue, because it's so easy for people to get lost on their phone screens right now and just be told what they're passionate about, right? Be told what they need to have emotion about. But everyone has a passion, right? And everyone has a strong mission that they need to pursue, that they have the talents to pursue those, right? And they shouldn't be told by society, they shouldn't be told by a phone screen, they shouldn't be told by their boss that they need to pursue the path forward that is not set for them specifically, it's set by another person. That we need to have people understand that everyone has their own talents, everyone has their own passions. Let's utilize those to build up a community that is abundantly, profitable in true wealth, right? In the fact that we can lift each other up as a community and utilize our passions, our talents, our assets, our money, and our time to uplift others to their best potential.
I love everything that you're saying because it's so interesting to have a conversation with you at 26 years old because so much of what we talk about with people in their 40s or 50s is this idea of dismantling the should and the have to and getting really clear on what it is that lights the spark within you and fires you up to want to run towards something instead of saying, this is the goal I think I should write based on what I think I should do, based on what is realistic or probable or what I did before or what somebody else thinks I should do. Like none of that feels inspired, right? All of that feels heavy and like a grind, right? But when you get really curious about what sparks you and what excites you, and I've always thought to myself, man, if I could have more conversations with people in their 20s and let them know it's okay to explore and be curious about what lights you up, because most of us didn't figure out what we wanted to quote unquote be when we grow up until much later in life, and some of us are still wondering what we're going to be when we grow up. So, I mean, it's really fascinating. So, talk us through what unfolded from there and how you have developed this community and then how it's led you to publishing this book, Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth, because I'm excited to hear what this is all about.
Yeah, and Aaron, you touch on something there that's really interesting. I have been told before, I've been told, Nathan, you're 26. You don't know anything. You haven't lived. And told by people that are, 40, 50, 60 years old. But and I'm not bashing on anyone, right? But I just have to say that some people live the same 40, 50, 60 years of their life on repeat, right? There's not the adventure, right? There's not the drive behind all of that. And so what's beautiful about this is that I have been able to surround myself with such high achievers, right? And such high level thinkers that I'm able to leverage their wisdom to help me move forward so that I can build the life that I've dreamt of, right? I can build my dream and I can impact the world to the fullest capacity because I'm able to leverage the multiple lives that I've lived, right? The life of a competitive cyclist, the life of a businessman, the life of a student, the life of a teenage boy, right? The life of a father, right? I've lived so many lives in my mere 26 years old, right? So I think it's really important for people to understand the power of association, right? And the power of having that network, which is a key term that Sharon Lechter always uses. So that kind of dives into the book, of course, right? You were asking a little bit about old wealth, new wealth, true wealth. The basis of all of this was when I was obviously at the beginning stages of my recovery, I had the idea that I wanted to write a book about everything that I had experienced. And so I started putting together some ideas, but that never really came to fruition, right? And so then this year, after I've established a few businesses and I was able to leverage the capacity to be able to work with someone like Sharon Lechter and leverage my time to work with her, I knew that I wanted to write a book about my accident. But of course, that book was it's very motivational. It's very inspiring because it's a miraculous story, right? But it was just about me still, right? And something that I've learned is that writing is less about ego and more about stewardship, right? That we're wanting to deliver this message so that our audience, our readers can relate to it. And that's most easily done through a parable, right? So we wrote this book as a really as a narrative, as a parable. It's about three brothers. One represents old wealth, one represents new wealth, one represents true wealth. And they're given a riddle to solve by their father at his passing. And this riddle will help them define true wealth and carry on the family legacy. That goes obviously that includes the monetary legacy, but it also really involves the mission, the passion, and the truth of the family in their family legacy. And so it's a really incredible read because it's come into a whole story. The scene of the story is placed at Cherry Creek Lodge, which is Sharon Lechter's ranch out in Young, Arizona. And the reason it takes place there is because while I was at Cherry Creek Lodge with Sharon and with my whole book writing team, we started to mastermind together about how we could make this book impact more lives. And immediately the story of the three brothers came to life, and it just makes sense. It's very fitting that it would take place in Cherry Creek Lodge because that's where I was able to learn so much through Sharon's mentorship and through her guidance. And I think that there's a lot that everyone can relate to at a place like Cherry Creek Lodge, right? You're out in the wilderness, you're out in the place where we are meant to live, right? It is peaceful and it is holistic and it's natural. And so it was an incredible story that has come together. And we are publishing the book on January 23rd, which, like I said, that's the day that I was hit by the car 10 years ago. So 10 years to the date is when we are publishing a book. And it is so miraculous to me and awe-inspiring to myself even that 10 years after I encountered death, 10 years after my life took a tragic turn, after I couldn't walk again, after I couldn't eat again or talk again or live again, right? I'm able to publish a book with Sharon Lechter. And this book it's not just a book, right? It's the beginning of a movement because I'm really passionate about helping a younger generation find the true meaning of our time, right? Of true wealth, right? Because true wealth is ownership of our time so that we don't have to bow to any other powers and let other people take control of our lives. We can move forward and build the lives that allow us to become our best self when we own our time. So that's the movement that we are starting, and it is such a blessing that I can say that we're starting that 10 years to the date of when I was hit by the car.
So amazing. And I love Cherry Creek Lodge. I love the labyrinth. I love the horseback riding, all of it. It's such a special place. Talk me through this now. You're coming out of recovery, you're roughly 18 years old, and now 8 years later, you're publishing a book on ownership of your time and true wealth. So what does it mean? What does true wealth mean to you? And what is the differentiator between true wealth, new wealth, and old wealth?
Yeah, great question. So old wealth is more of the long-term tax advantaged planning, right? It's wonderful. That's how you build generational wealth, right? I hold a lot of old wealth, so we're talking about real estate, which of course your audience would love this, right? So real estate, tax advantage plans like whole life insurance. Some of it's a little bit more hidden, right? Like some offshore banking, dynasty trusts. Some of it's been more hidden in the past and it's being more understood now because of all of our social media and the media that we have. But it's all old wealth, which is traditionally quieter, more discreet, very reliable, and long term planning. New wealth is more of the modern wealth builder, kind of drop shipping, ETFs, entrepreneurship, side hustles, right? Almost the get rich quick schemes, right? The kind of the flashier, right? Driving your Bentley with your Rolex, nothing wrong with that stuff necessarily, right? But maybe there's something more, right? Maybe there's something more, and that is the new wealth that we are seeing right now through a lot of social media fame and through a lot of like I said, get rich quick schemes almost, crypto. And so the combination of old wealth and new wealth, then the perfect marriage between the two of them is true wealth. So it's utilizing that long-term planning of the old wealth with the new mission of entrepreneurship in the new wealth. So the old wealth and the new wealth come together and create multiple streams of income, which then creates time freedom, which is true wealth. And so being able to build up those multiple streams of income and utilize that freedom of time to then build your life to become the highest, the best potential person that you can be. I mean, that is what true wealth becomes, right? So it's not There's nothing against the monetary growth and abundance in old or new wealth. There's nothing against the methods to accomplish the establishment of old wealth or the establishment of new wealth. But it's the perfect marriage of the two that comes together in order to provide that freedom of time, and then we can utilize that freedom of time to not only improve the world around us, but have an abundance of an effect on the world so that we understand how valuable our time is because we see a whole population that's lost time in their screens. They've lost time in video games, or they've lost time in little things that aren't necessarily helping them become the best potential person that they can for the community, right? Because true wealth is very communal. Like I said earlier, it's very capitalist. And so a lot of competition, a lot of community building. It's very selfless, right? And being able to create generosity with all of your assets, your talents, and your time. That is true wealth.
Awesome. So how did this lead you to the True Wealth movement and the community? What do you have going on there? What kind of resources are you providing? And I guess who are the ideal people that are finding their way to your work?
This is a community that I wish I would have had when I was a new entrepreneur, right? As a 26-year-old, I can relate a lot to all of my clients because I too was a senior in college trying to figure out how I could start a business as opposed to just being an employee because that's what they were teaching me in college was how to be a good employee. And so I wanted to learn how to become an entrepreneur, become a business owner. I mean, if I would have had someone hold my hand through it all, right? And show me the ropes, that would have been very convenient. That's what I'm doing, right? I'm really passionate about mentoring proactive and aspiring entrepreneurs so that they can shed mediocrity, they can regain ownership of their time, and then they can manifest their dreams, create their businesses, create their passion so that they obviously obtain the freedom of time. And so this is really built with a large network that I've been able to pull together, leveraging the guidance and the mentorship of Sharon Lechter. Russell Gray is who I'm working with right now to build Main Street Media Network, which is helping people to monetize podcasts, which is exactly what we're doing right now, right? To build up your communities. I'm working with a lot of other small business owners, getting their input on how they were able to establish, scale, and exit their businesses. And so all of this is being put together in a platform, school platform actually, so that aspiring and proactive entrepreneurs can learn how to successfully establish a small business and build that business, how they can become a new real estate investor. I have a large team who has coached me on how to raise capital, who I will also be able to leverage to coach my clients on how to raise capital. So we'll teach them how to become an entrepreneur, how to become a real estate investor, how to start from day one to be able to accomplish entrepreneurial lifestyle.
This is so amazing. So how do people get a hold of you to learn more about your products? Like where's the best way to find you, follow you?
I'm Nathan Barkocy everywhere. So the best way for people to find me for the True Wealth community is on my main website, which is nathanbarkocy.com. So that's Nathan, Nathan, and then my last name Barkocy, B as in boy, ARKOCY.com. nathanbarkocy.com. So on that website, people can see obviously my miraculous life story. I have it all lined up for people to take a look at, and then I also have access to the True Wealth community, access to my new book, Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth. I have access to the different projects that I'm leading right now with real estate. So if investors are interested, they can reach out. And if they're accredited investors, they're able to invest into my real estate syndications. And I'm building all of this new community and all of these new opportunities through my main website, which is nathanbarkocy.com. But of course, you can find me on any social media. We're really working on establishing the YouTube channel right now and also all of my social media platforms, which across the board, it's Nathan Barkocy. And the main mission behind all of that specifically is to help people break free from the trap that they're stuck in, with just doom scrolling is what it's called, right? Being on social media, just doom scrolling. I'd love to be the man who pops up on their screen and tells them, "Hey, let's go get your work done. Let's take action," right? Because the only difference between a successful entrepreneur and a dreamer is taking action.
I love that. So talk to us a little bit about how you are leveraging your time to manage so many projects all at once. You're about to release what's likely going to be a bestseller. You're developing a community. You're developing real estate projects. You're running syndications. You're raising capital. You're being mentored. You're mentoring others. Like, how do you manage it all? How do you help someone who has the dreamer imagine a way that there could be an action plan that is manageable with so many projects going all at once?
A whole lot of coffee.
Good answer.
This is my natural organic coffee directly from Costa Rica. So this is what keeps me going, you know?
Oh my God, I love it so much. Well, it's super
Yeah.
impressive, Nathan, and what a gift to have you here in every way. And just what a pleasure to hear from you and just absorb some of your wisdom. I love it so much. I'm so impressed and I'm so grateful to Sharon for making the connection.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. And really, I think obviously there is, coffee involved, a lot of it, but the what I've learned is there's a difference between a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, and a capitalist, right? And so building businesses require you to structure systems, and those systems will allow themselves to grow through employment, right? So I've hired employees and I'm scaling my businesses by hiring more. I mean, I guess more help because I can't do it myself, right? And so being able to build that platform, right, and that system in order to scale is very necessary. And that is only possible through collaboration, right? That's only possible through community. And community, of course, is built in capitalism through the employment of different experts, right? Because I know how to run social media, I know how to build webinars, I know how to do this stuff, but my time is so valuable while I'm scaling these businesses, while I'm building these businesses, that I delegate those, of course, to my assistants. I delegate those to my employees. They build the webinars, they do the social media, they do all of the branding, and then I can focus more so on raising the capital, on putting together the projects. I have teams that help me underwrite projects, and so it's all about delegation. And this is something that I've learned recently, right? Is how to scale business in order to become fully successful because you cannot do it on your own.
100%. I tried that myself for far too many years before I realized I was the bottleneck. And that is something we're very passionate about here at Pursuing Freedom. My listeners know we're all about systems and scale so that you can actually, the motto is so you can build a life you don't need a vacation from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, Aaron, it's been such an honor to be with you today, and I really appreciate you being able to bring this message to your audience because I think this is definitely something that they will be passionate about and come to a fuller understanding of.
100%. So for everybody listening, make sure you jump over to Amazon because by the time this releases, it's either about to release or it's just released. Old wealth, new wealth, true wealth. Who doesn't want all that? Who doesn't want ownership of your time? That's exactly what Pursuing Freedom is about. It's the reason you're here. And so don't be an inspiration junkie, be an action junkie. And speaking of action, if you love this episode, make sure to share it with somebody that you care about. And make sure if you have not left that 5-star review that you do so because it does really help us continue to attract amazing guests like Nathan and help this content get found so more people can build a life you don't need a vacation from. I love you. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.